good? The sound good?
Yes, everything is good. The style is good. You look good, and we on Facebook. And you said that you were an introvert, and I am wanting to say hi to everyone, the audience here. If anyone used to say that you are an introvert or you are shy, but you know that sometimes it is important to speak up. Then we are here today to have Aaron. I think one of my favorite speakers, and I saw him many years ago, and today I saw him again. But we had a chance to now have a conversation with Aaron. So Aaron, can you tell us about your introvert world champion speaking person inside you?
Yeah. Well, I always grew up as a person who never really liked the limelight. I always preferred to be more so in the background. And growing up, I never really knew what it was until fairly recently. Probably, I would say about 6 or 7 years ago, where I finally found out about the concept of introvert and an extrovert. And that was really an eye-opening experience for me because I learned that I'm not weird because I prefer to not be around people. I am not weird since if I get tired being around people. It was really good to figure out what it actually was that was causing me to not necessarily always want to be around people, and that it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I got involved with things that I liked. And one of those things that I liked was public speaking. When I got involved with public speaking, I realized that even though I was an introvert, I was still able to be an effective speaker. And learning more about being an introvert, I learned that public speaking has nothing to do with whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. Everybody can be a fantastic public speaker. If you're a person that's outgoing and you love people, you're very extroverted, you can still be a great public speaker. And on the other hand, you can be a bad public speaker. And same thing for introverts. You can be a great public speaker or you can be a bad public speaker. There are different fundamentals that are applied here, or different things that apply here when we're talking about introversion and extroversion, and when we're talking about public speaking. So if there's anybody out there who thinks that they can't be a good public speaker because they're more of a quiet person, because they're introverted, they don't like being around lots of people for a long time, that's perfectly fine. There are things that you can use to your advantage to still be a great and effective public speaker. That's what I learned in Toastmasters. That's what I learned in my experience. And over the years, I started competing in the international speech contest that Toastmasters has. And I competed starting in 2012. I started competing in 2012. Then I competed every single year after that until eventually I won in 2019.
Wow, I had two things that I like to dig a bit deeper. If you see that I'm speaking a lot, maybe you also somehow think that maybe I was an introvert or I was a very like shy person. I didn't speak almost 18 years of my life. And it had a lot to do with people label me as a weird, ugly person. And it made me not wanting to speak because I was not wanting people to continuing like telling me this. So I believe there's a lot of people may not see themselves as an introvert if they don't know the term, but they kind of like, because of that outside limiting voices, they may not speak up. And for these people, maybe they don't work to become speakers, but maybe sometimes because they tell themselves that because they are like this, like that, so they stop working on their dreams. So can you share with us, like, how could people have that kind of process to not making it as a reason? And maybe you can share your process, right? Turning it around, not making it as a limiting thing, but more like a motivation to then transform.
Yeah. Well, for you kind of alluded to it when you were talking just now that there are different reasons why people don't want to speak and why they don't want to be in the limelight. Maybe they're not an introvert. Maybe they were just traumatized at an early part of their life. maybe people gave them bad reactions, or maybe people called them names or belittled them. And that caused them to not want to put themselves out there. I think for me, it came to a point where I needed to do something in order for me to get ahead in life. When I graduated from college, for instance, I graduated during the Great Recession. So the economy was very bad. The jobs that I thought were going to be there were no longer there. I needed to find some way to stand out. And I knew that public speaking was one of those ways that I could stand out, because everybody doesn't want to get on stage and speak in front of people. Everybody doesn't have the ability to get up and, for lack of a better word, enthrall the audience. I decided to join Toastmasters in 2009. And when I did that, I realized that, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this thing. So let me keep doing it. And then I fell in love with it. So one of the things that I would say for those people who need to find that spark, that motivation, find something that you love. So maybe you don't want to be a professional speaker, but you want to increase your confidence. Find something that you love, that you can throw yourself into, that you can just dive deeper into, learn more about it, become the best at it, or become one of the best at it. And that increases your confidence, because you know that you have this one skill that other people don't have. You have this ability to do something that a lot of people don't have. For me, I was fortunate that that was public speaking. And public speaking has been a great way for me to increase my confidence, and increase my self-confidence rather. And that every time I speak, I feel like I'm accomplishing something. And when I have that feeling of accomplishment, it makes me want to keep doing it. So that's one other thing that I will say, that if you find that one piece that you can dive into and absolutely love doing, use that as the start of your confidence building. But then when you start to feel more confidence from completing it over and over again, just keep using that as additional motivation to keep going.
Wow, I can use this term I call like confidence and competence loop, right? So Aaron, you just talk about like when you develop a skill or you gain the competency, the level of confidence increase. So it's like a loop. We keep developing, and when we keep developing, we go back. And it happens that your competency has something to do with also public speaking. And actually our team also looked around to see the introvert, extraordinary people. And we also found, like, let's say Elon Musk or Bill Gates or Mark, they all like used to be considered as shy people or didn't speak much, or introvert people. So yeah, thank you for sharing that piece, because I also reflect on my journey that I was, yes, happened that I one day I could be able to speak, and I feel like, wow, that is a great way to communicate. And I also really like to see other people can have that spark. So I like to pick up on your journey. You identify that skill, and it came from you had to, let's say, move ahead in life. And I believe we all at some point we want to move ahead. So we, maybe from your point of view, can start off with a developing a skill and gain that confidence. So you develop that skill, and then you fell in love with that, you inspire people, and then you had a long journey, let's say 10 years, competing since 2012, and then you got a second place 2016. And that speech, like, that title is just awesome, not because I remember, but because it's very long and it has beautiful message, right? So I will ask another question about the differences between 2016 and 2019. But how did you get to that level of 2016 after seven years being in that journey? How much work did you put in, and what was that process?
Yeah, well, the process changed over the years. But the first thing that I will say, the beginning of any process is to just get started. And that, again, is just making sure that you just put yourself out there. You may not be sure if you're ready, but I have news for you. Very rarely is anybody 100% ready for the things that they do, especially if it's something that is very highly regarded. So I didn't know if I was ready to compete, but I decided that I was just going to go forward and compete in 2012. And when I did that, I realized again that I was pretty good at it, but I wasn't as good as I thought. So when I decided to compete in 2012, I won my first round at the club contest, and I had all this confidence that I was going to keep winning all the way to the World Championship of Public Speaking. But then I ended up not advancing out of the second round. And that's what caused me to want to find a mentor, find somebody who could help guide me. So I found that person that very next year. His name is Dilip Abesekra. He was a former president of the Toastmasters International Organization. And when I was tutored by him and mentored by him, he really helped me understand the fundamentals. So the next part in your process is to understand the fundamentals of what it is that you're doing. If you don't understand the fundamentals, if you don't understand the framework of what you do, then you're going to have a pretty difficult time advancing very far in whatever it is that you're doing. When I learned the fundamentals, I realized a lot of the mistakes that I was making before, and I corrected them. Then the next year, from not being able to get out of the second round, I went from not being able to get out the second round to getting to the semifinals that very next year, just because of that mentorship and that learning of the fundamentals. The next part in my process really came from just trial and error. I wanted to find a style that fit me, and I started testing out different things. So the next part I would say is to test out different styles, test out different techniques, see what works for you and see what doesn't work for you. See what you like and see what you don't like. Once you're able to see what you like and what you don't like, then you'll be able to start to craft a style that is more unique to you. That's what I did from 2014 up until 2016. And it was in 2016 where I finally found a style that I liked. And once you find a style that you like, you just try to refine that style even further. And my style really came from working on a speech for multiple years. It didn't get as far as I wanted it to in 2015. So instead of just throwing it away, I decided to rework it, to refine it, to make it better. Then that speech that didn't get out that certain round, that ended up getting me to the World Championship of Public Speaking that very next year, because I just kept working on it, which is something else that I would say is a part of my process. Don't throw away your material just because it doesn't get you to a certain level. You want to make sure that you refine it, that you rework it, because you can probably use this again later and it's going to be something stronger. It's going to be something better that you can use. So make sure that you don't throw it away, because you never know, it may be gold. And for me, it was gold. I went to the World Championship of Public Speaking in 2016, where, as you alluded to, I gave a speech with a very, very long title. But the message in it was something that we are kind of alluding to now when we're talking about being an introvert and an extrovert, where I was telling people how I was a quiet person, but how it was okay to be that quiet person, to not say that much, because it's a matter of what we say and how we say it that really matters, not how much we say. So after that, in 2017, I decided to still keep competing, but I didn't get out of the semifinals that year. And then 2018, I didn't get out of my district level, which is the round before the semifinal. So I was actually regressing. So I went from World Championship to not being able to get out the semifinals to not being able to get out of my district. And I was feeling a little bit down about myself about that. But it was in late 2018, where I realized that my mind was in the wrong place. I was so focused on winning that I wasn't finding the time to focus on my growth and how I was progressing as a speaker and as a person. So I said to myself that next year, 2019, I'm not going to focus on winning. I'm going to focus on growing as a speaker. And it just so happened that the 1 year where I said that I am not going to focus on winning, that I don't want to win the world champion. Well, let me rephrase that. I did want to win the world championship of public speaking, but my goal was not to win the world championship of public speaking. But the 1 year where I made it not my goal to win the world championship of public speaking, I won the world championship of public speaking. And I really believe that it was a matter of focusing on the right things, focusing on growing as a speaker. That was the key.
I can tell the great example that you don't say much. I speak a lot, but didn't make a point. But what you said here, I saw a lot of things that I want to dig a bit deeper. And we can see here, like how did you set that world champion goal? And then how did you actually maintain that confidence after you got that level? And then you actually like downgrade yourself, let's say in the title, when you didn't get to the district, and then you bring back that kind of level regarding the title, but more because of the inside development. So how can you talk a bit deeper about that kind of fundamentals, right? Because I believe that in speaking, there's kind of, let's say, specific examples, but what about like in general? What do you mean by fundamentals? Can you break it down?
Yeah. So when I say fundamentals, I'm talking about the basics of communication. So when you're speaking to somebody, do you have a message that's clear? Is it organized? Do you have a story that flows correctly? Do you have characters in your story that people can get behind, that people can relate to? Also, when it comes to your stage presence, are you utilizing the stage properly? Are you a person that just walks around aimlessly with no intention? Or are you a person that moves purposely on the stage? Are you a person that gives good eye contact when you're speaking? Or are you a person that constantly looks down and up? Or you have no rhyme or reason why you're looking at certain things? So those are some of the fundamentals. But the key for me was making sure that I had a quality story and a quality structure. So when you are speaking, a lot of people make the mistake of speaking how they write. So when you write a book, for instance, you're writing for the eye. So your words need to look pretty, and you need to make sure that you're not repeating certain words. You need to use certain synonyms. That's great when you're writing a book. But when you're giving a speech, you really need to focus on making things sound good for the ear. So when you're working on something to sound good for the ear, your language needs to become more simple. You don't need to use very high level words. You need to use more common words, especially if you're speaking to a general audience. One of the things that people always need to follow, regardless of what audience they're speaking to, is KYA, know your audience. When you know your audience, you know exactly how to tailor that message to that audience. And for me, it's always been a more general audience. They're not going to be very technical. So I need to make sure that my language isn't technical. I need to make sure that my language isn't super high level, that people can understand, whether they are new to public speaking, whether they are super advanced in public speaking, whether they are very young, whether they are older. I want to be able to speak to as many people as I possibly can. So those are some of the things that I mean when I say fundamentals. But when it comes to the fundamentals, there are many other things. But I would say that know your audience, that's one fundamental. Two, making sure that you have a good quality story and that you have a clear message and structure in your speeches.
Actually, like we can say like common sense doesn't mean it always common practice, right? When you say about fundamentals in public speaking, I think give us a very clear examples, but we can relate to other areas in life. Let's say fundamental in businesses, we need to know our audience, our customer, our target customer. And if we are working in, let's say, playing like a sporter, we need to have this very basic movement and practice it over and over again and master that. But because it is like fundamental and it doesn't create the novelty, so yeah, who actually like get to that level like you, I believe that master that fundamental very well. And how can you make it interesting? Because I believe that one of the things that I found difficult to make something fundamental become like a mastery level, because it's a repeat. So
Yeah.
how can we like make that journey like level up and interesting?
Well, this is why it's going to be really important for you to find something that you absolutely love to do. When you find something that you absolutely love to do, it's going to be harder to get bored with it. So when we think about this from a public speaking aspect, think about it as, what story do you like to tell? What story do you want to tell? What type of people do you want to help with your messages? Who do you want to teach? Or who do you want to teach to, I should say. That is going to help you stay motivated to keep doing those same fundamentals. So making sure that you practice the eye contact, making sure that you have the quality speech structure. Once you do them enough, they just start to become logic. They start to become common sense. You start to think like, how is it that nobody else understands these things? Because you've just become such a master of the fundamentals. That comes from just diving deep into things and be doing it so much without any care of how tedious it is or how repetitive it may be. You just like to do it, and then you become a master of it. But also, one thing that really helps is just finding the art in it. So I like to say that public speaking is a science and it's an art. The fundamentals of public speaking, that making sure you have good eye contact, making sure you use the stage correctly, making sure that you know your audience, all of that is the science. So all of that is fun, all of the fundamentals that you should master if you want to be a proper public speaker. But the science isn't everything. You also have the art. And the art is the storytelling techniques. It's how you perform on the stage. It's how much you move on stage or how much you use your gestures. So that's going to be the artistic side of it. And that can be
the fundamentals. Sometimes creativity doesn't come from like doing something different, right? Like something else, but it's like dig deeper into that like level mastery, like you said. And that where we can also discover how we can be creative on that masterpiece. Wow, I love that. So yeah, only when we can dive into that deep level, maybe we can experience that. So how can a person define that style? I believe that it comes from exploration. And when we talk about public speaking, maybe different speaking styles, we can research. But I also can apply what you said to maybe choosing a career. Like what kind of career we are like going to be very like digging in and being in that mastery level. So what would be the kind of process of a person to reflect on their heart, their body, their mind, that, oh, this is the style that I am myself and it's effective. This is the career that I want to be in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So for me, I had to find everything through trial and error. So it came through testing things out. And again, finding what I liked and what I didn't like. I also looked at other people, like other speakers, to see, okay, I like that style. I like what they did with that technique. I like that piece of humor that they used. I like the facial expressions they were making that made the audience react a certain way. I was always learning from other masters and then trying to take pieces of what those masters were doing and incorporate that into my own style. So, and you broach the topic of careers, it's similar to how we try to find the perfect career, where we have a job and there are some things about the job that we really love, and then there are some things about the job that we really don't love. By the time we move to our next position, we want to take more things out that we didn't like and keep the things that we did like. And the more you do that, the more likely it is that you're going to find that career or that job that you really love. And it's the same thing with your speaking style. You test it over and over and over again until you finally get that part that you say, okay, I really like this style. I really like this type of speaking. I want to keep doing that. For me, the style that I came across was more of a fast-paced, punchy style of speaking when it comes to, and when I say punchy, I mean delivers more on the humorous side or the lighthearted side rather than going really deep and personal all the time. I found that it was easier for me to communicate being more lighthearted and quick and punchy in my delivery rather than just going slowly and methodical. And not that that's a bad style, it's just a style that I wasn't as fond of as the alternative. And then the other part of my style is just storytelling. I really like to tell stories, and storytelling is a major foundation in my public speaking style. So I took all of that and then I just started to refine it and hone it and make sure that it was me who was speaking. So making sure that I was being authentic as I spoke. And that really helped me craft the style that I have today.
Lovely. So if we say that we don't know what we like or what we love as a long life career, then tell us or tell yourself or list out what we don't like. And as you say, the elimination of that over time, we can refine and have that clarity. And even in the startup thing, we do like lean startup, like we will do trial and error and then test out and continue utilizing it. So I like to go to the part where you won, and I mean won like second place. And you said that you keep check on your development. Could you tell us like how did you do that? Is this like through a journal or what was that kind of, or maybe you still use it? Because I found that you also said the time when you was in 2016, you you blink a lot. Like when you appear on the stage, I like your humor. Like you were serious, but people laugh. I love that. Like because it's kind of like very the vibe is so relaxing and humorous, but your face like is like kind of serious, but in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
But I observe that you blinking a lot, and I think you talk about it once you criticize your own speech. So how did you have that kind of elimination in a very practical way? Yeah.
Well, I definitely did multiple things and I still do multiple things. So sometimes I'll write things out in a journal and then sometimes I just keep it all in here. When it comes to my presentations, however, the one thing that I would say is very consistent across all of my development when it comes to public speaking is recording myself. So I make sure to record myself when I speak, and then I watch or listen to the recording, whether it was a video recording or an audio recording. And then I evaluate myself based on what I liked and what I didn't like. If there were some things that I thought that could use improvement, I go out and I improve it. If there were some things that I think I did very well, I want to make sure that I keep that in the next version of the presentation or in future speeches. So that's really where I grow as a speaker, where when I not only record myself, because a lot of people can record themselves, but when I actually watch and listen to the recording, because a lot of people can't do that step. They don't like the way that they sound. They don't like the way that they look. So they decide to avoid their recordings. But I say you should never avoid your recordings. Make sure that you sit down, watch yourself, or listen to yourself, because that's going to be one of the best ways that you can improve. That's actually how I improved so much in 2016. I didn't have the ability to go out to different Toastmaster clubs to practice my speeches over and over again in front of different audiences. I just could not do it logistically. I decided that the best way for me to move forward was to continue to record myself and listen back to the presentations and see how much I could improve, see all of the mistakes that I was making, see if there was something that I could tweak ever so slightly to make it better. And once I got to the point where I said, okay, I don't think I can make any more changes, I don't think that I can make any more improvements, that's when I decided to take it in front of some type of audience. So I had a limited audience, but I made sure that every single audience that I spoke in front of was going to get a very quality speech, or the best quality speech that I could make at that time. Then once I got their feedback, I was able to make additional changes, and I was able to see additional weaknesses in my presentation. And I just repeated that process over and over again. But the major foundation of that was listening to myself over and over again, or watching myself over and over again to see what I can do better.
Yeah. I remember you talk about the science why we don't like to listen to ourselves, and it is difficult. Then if we can do that, we can see like that will bring the result. And if we don't even can listen to ourselves, maybe also hard for other people to do so. So I like what you said about that. So how did you really change your blinking? Like that is a very specific question, but how did you change that blinking in 2016? Because you don't blink a lot now at all.
Well, in 2016, I would say that it was more so from probably nervousness. I've never been able to understand exactly what it was that caused me to blink so much, but the changes that I made that may have affected it was, one, the experience. So I was on the world championship stage before, and I knew what I needed to do. And keep in mind, I did still blink a lot, but it wasn't as noticeable. But the other thing that I did, that I'm not sure whether this really caused the change or not, but I didn't have my glasses on stage in 2019. So maybe it was the glare from the lights in my glasses, and that caused me to blink more. I don't know. But I think just being conscious of it, number one, was the key. So seeing the video recording in 2016 and thinking to myself, I'm blinking a lot and I don't know why I'm blinking. That just caused me to find out ways that I could control my eyes a little bit better.
I also surprised because actually I still blinking a lot. I'm not very worried, or maybe I'm excited now, but I also didn't know. As you said, it's very important to be aware. And one day my mentee actually said, you blinked a lot. And then I started noticing it. But before that, I was like very unconscious. So, and then I started noticing, it's like, wow. So awareness, by like Aaron said, like often reflecting upon ourselves. So I like to go now further from 2016 to after 2019. What I really like when you share that you change as a better speaker, as a better person. But before that, you, let's say, downgrade as a title. A lot of us, I think we got success like by society standard, and then we started like maybe having a little bit failure as a social standard. How could we kind of still keep that self-image and that confidence? Because you said you doubted about yourself.
Well, for me, it was realizing that my head wasn't in the right place. It was realizing that I was focused more on winning than actually getting better as a speaker. And it was also realizing the purpose of the contest that I was competing in. A lot of people don't know, but the Toastmaster contest, or the International Speech Contest, started off as a way for people to showcase the skills that they learned in their respective chapters. So it wasn't necessarily meant to crown the next world champion of public speaking and for them to be famous or for them to receive some type of reward and trophy. It wasn't about that. It was really just to showcase the skills that you learned in the club. So I went back to that purpose. So I went back to just focusing on the skills that I learned and just trying to get on stage so that I could show people what I've learned and show myself what I've learned. And it really became more about growth instead of about winning. And that mentality shift, it may sound cliche, but it was really crucial for me to change that mindset to think about growth versus winning. And when I was focused on growth, I was focused on how I was performing. There was one example that I have. I was really down about a division contest, or sorry, an area contest that I competed in. I won that area contest, but I wasn't proud of my performance. So I went to my videos, my video recording and my audio recordings, found out my mistakes, and I corrected them for division. And I felt much better about my division performance. So I felt better about how I grew as a speaker then. My goal was to get better in every single round. And if I felt that I was getting better every single round, then I was becoming a better speaker, and that in the long run, I would come out better for it.
How could we practice that shifting mindset? Because as you said, like maybe we had that kind of aware, but the practice and make it become, let's say, like who we are. How was that process? Like, because I wake up and I say, oh, we're training to grow mindset. Is this a repeating that, or is this a step? How was that?
So for me, the growth mindset just came from making goals. So like I said, I had a goal every round to get better. The goal that I made in every round was dependent on what I wanted to do. So for instance, the first round was to just remember my speech, because the speech was still relatively new in my head. I made some additional changes. I wanted to make sure that I gave that speech the right way, just remember the speech. Then the next round, it was about making sure that the words that came out of my mouth matched what I was doing on stage. So I wanted to make sure that my body and my words were in sync, because there were times when I noticed before where I would say something and I wasn't reflecting that in my body language. So it's like the people that say like, oh, I'm very happy, but they don't look happy at all. So I wanted to make sure that that was synced, and that was another goal. But every single round, I made a goal of something that I wanted to do, something that I wanted to improve upon. So even if I didn't win, I could look at that video and say, okay, I did everything that I needed to do. I did everything that I said I was going to do. And even though I didn't get the trophy, or even though I didn't get the first place win, I still came out on top because I had accomplished the goal that I set out to accomplish.
Wow, so compare ourselves to our self standard, right? And that is mean that we already like achieve the level of growth. Beautiful. And I think that applies to anything that we work on. If we can be better 1% compared to yesterday, let's say if we're running 1 minute faster, or maybe yoga 1 minute longer, 1% being better. Well, thank you for that. So you just said something in a video that you came back on 2019 and you was yourself in a way that you made the speech as you wanted it to be. Can we say it's like you was like more authentic you? It's more about you are there than only a good or great speech. That was this process, because I think even we are working in other area when we can be that authentic self, because it may be very scary, because we may have a fear that what people are going to say, and maybe because of that context we need to be in that frame. How can we be that authentic in a way that still effective? Yeah.
So I think when it comes to being authentic, you really want to focus on how you act in your everyday life. One of the things that I always dislike about some people when they speak is that you know for a fact that they don't talk like that in real life. They may speak overly formal, or they may do some super dramatic gesturing that you don't do in real life. I always try to give myself the thought that I want to speak as if I'm speaking to a group of friends in a casual setting. And when I'm speaking to a group of friends in a casual setting, I don't speak like, I went outside, I saw the sun, and it reflected that. Nobody talks like that. There's not a single soul who talks like that when they're not on stage doing Shakespeare or something. So I wanted to make sure that the words that I said were the same words that I used in my everyday language. The way that I said them were the same ways that I said them in my everyday life. That the body movements that I made, they were the same movements that I would naturally make as if I was having a casual conversation with friends or family. For me, that's what being authentic as a speaker is. Now, there is still some polishing that needs to be done. I will never say that as a speaker, you need to just go out on stage and just be 100% yourself with no work or no polish at all. No, there is going to be a little bit of polish that is needed because you want to make sure that your message is clear and that your audience can understand you and that you can actually remember the things that you need to say. So there is some polishing involved, but overall, the words that you say are the words that you normally say. The movements that you make are the movements that you normally make. So for me, that's what it means to be authentic when you speak.
Yeah, I can feel like you are now on that stage as I am speaking to you, the voice and the humor, but your face a little bit like serious. But like when I feel, I say like I'm sad, I'm still smiling. That's what normally people say because I'm always keeping this habit. So you said something, let's say like we will always being better because that growth mindset. So that level of dedication bring you to the, let's say, title of world champion of speaking, but it comes with the values you give and the dedication that you give. So after that, how is that level? After that kind of world class level, how could you let out, or how could you plan out the growth development plan after that world champion? Because I think when we get to, let's say, top level, yeah, how is that journey after that look like?
Well, I think a lot of people should understand, especially in the Toastmasters world, is that the World Championship of Public Speaking doesn't mean that you're the best public speaker in the world. It means that for this 1 year, you won a contest that the judges picked you as the best speaker out of that group of people that competed that year. That's all that means. It doesn't mean that you can't learn more. It doesn't mean that there's nothing more to learn. It does mean that you have a title that shows that you have some type of speaking skill. It shows that you have some type of dedication, that you have some type of resolve. And that's great. So you need to keep that up. You need to keep up that motivation, that keep up that resolve, keep up that determination. And you find other ways to learn, find other ways to get better. I still learn as a speaker. I still learn from other master speakers. I see things that I like and that I want to test out. For me now, though, I'm not going to be able to grow through the contest as I used to, because now being a champion, I can't compete in that contest anymore. But there are still other things that I can do. There are still other avenues that I can explore. There's a whole professional public speaking scene that I could possibly venture into. I don't know as much about it as I do like the international speech contest, but if I have that same level of dedication, then I can still learn more about the professional public speaking world. And that's the journey that I'm on right now, where I'm learning more about the professional side of public speaking rather than the Toastmaster competitive side.
So do you look up to any speaker? I believe that as you said, that you often watch other speakers and then you eliminate what you like and eliminate what you think that not suitable for you, and maybe learn some kind of behaviors or skill style from that person. Do you have your, let's say, often looking up speaker, or we call like a speaker mate? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say I do still learn from some of my favorite speakers, or even if I'm not learning something new, it's just they help me remember some of the things that I may have forgotten in the past, or so it may be some relearning from some of these people. But my favorite speakers are, actually I have a lot of speakers who are comedians by trade. So their career, that they're professional comedians. And I consider comedians to be some of the most prolific public speakers, because they practice a lot of the fundamentals that we talk about when it comes to preparing your presentations and going out and testing material and making sure if certain things work, making sure that they know their audience, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, I learn a lot from comedians like Kevin Hart. There's another guy who I really like. His name is Hassan Minaj. And just keep in mind, if you look some of these people up, they do use a lot of blue humor, and they do use a lot of language that isn't so good. Let's just say that. So just be forewarned when you look these people up, but they still practice a lot of the same delivery techniques that I enjoy learning from. Other speakers that aren't comedians that I really enjoy listening to, I was inspired by Barack Obama, and I learned a lot from him from a public speaking standpoint and how powerful public speaking could be. And even some non-traditional public speakers. So people don't really think of these people as public speakers, but they are. Oprah Winfrey, who's a talk show host, very good public speaker, very good at listening to people, very good at interviewing people. So it's different skills that I try to take from different people, and I'm still learning them even today. So, and it doesn't even have to be somebody super famous. I could see a talk on YouTube and I say to myself, that person is speaking very well right now. What are some of the things that I like that they're doing? Or opposite, this person is not getting their message across very clearly. What are some of the things that they could do to improve that? And I try to apply those improvements for myself. So it's a constant learning experience. And I always admire any type of speaker that's doing very well speaking.
Lovely. So there's so many questions more, but I believe that I would love to take another chance to welcome you back. But I'm gonna ask two more. One is like, sometimes we have someone to look up. For example, maybe someone like you now, and they watch you and they become addicted to you, and they sound to be like you. And I think I don't know if you're experiencing that, but I experienced that with my mentor. Eventually, when we watch it enough, and then that could create an illusion, the version of the authentic version of ourselves may be like, let's say, cover up. So how did you experience that, and how could we making sure that we can have a conscious of learning from that skills, but not like, let's say, cover ourselves with another identity, but not the authentic identity?
Yeah. Well, I did experience that very early on in my contests, in my competition days, where after receiving mentorship from my mentor, Dilapabe Sekura, I realized that my style was shifting more to his style. And he was a storyteller like me, but he was slower in his delivery, and he was more deliberate. And that for me, it didn't seem as natural. So I had to find different ways to be different. So I had to look at other people. So don't just look at one person. I say look at multiple people. And when you see the different things that different people are doing, you'll be able to identify some of the things that are commonly done across all of them. And that's something that, okay, That's something that I feel that's definitely going to be in my style. And then there are just some things that I like from this guy that I may not like from this guy. So I'm just going to take this part from this guy. I'm going to use this technique from this other person. And then again, it's test, test, test to see how it feels for you. But when you're doing this, you're making sure that you can emulate their styles, you can copy a technique that they do, but never, ever, ever copy their stories or their material. So you still make sure that it is your own material, that it is your own story that you're using. You're just trying to use some of the techniques and the styles that these other speakers have used. So I definitely want to clarify that part. But when you test and you see what works and what doesn't, that is when you're going to start to develop your own style. And as you learn more about the trade that you're in, and for me, it was public speaking, when you learn more about it, then you'll be able to understand why certain things work and why they don't. And that helps solidify that style and helps solidify your knowledge about what you do and why you do it.
Beautiful. So it's like, yeah, that process again, there's a repetition here, right? Consistently setting another kind of level for ourselves and reflecting upon it to do better than yesterday. And I like to use the concept like this 1% better than yesterday in everything we do. Either you are a speaker or you are an engineer or you are mom or dad. That's is just 1% that today compared to yesterday. And what keep you every day being that kind of consistently growing yourself and feeling the sense of meaning? What is that sparkling reason for you? And maybe some of us here today, either introvert or extrovert, we all can identify that sparkling and every day to continue on that our journey. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I'll say this to close, that for me, it's always been about seeing the improvement in myself. I'm a person who loves to see improvement. So when I start to see some type of improvement, when I see progress, I want to keep seeing that progress. I want to keep feeling that accomplishment. I want to keep feeling that success. And that's the motivation that keeps me going. That's the spark that keeps me going. I look back at the type of speaker that I was back in 2009 when I first joined Toastmasters. I'm such a different speaker than I was back then. I'm such a much more confident speaker than I was back then. And knowing what I was inspires me to keep growing, because who knows where I could be in another 10 years. If I continue on this path, I could be, who knows? Yeah, who knows where I could be.
So how's Aaron in 10 years? How's Aaron in 10 years?
I have no clue. The future will tell.
Okay, I love it. So yeah, thank you so much for being here with us today. I like you to close it with a message. Can be a challenge, right? In Toastmaster, we practice well. At the end of a speech, or I think we will give a challenge, something that every one of us right away can do today. But before that, I just want to reveal that Aaron is one of my favorite friends' names. So I have two very close Aaron friends that's living in Vietnam. And I think I texted you at that time when I approached you to be in this interview. And thank you so much for being here. So could we have one challenge for our friend, especially someone who used to say that I am an introvert. So because of that, I cannot or I may not.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit and give you two challenges. So one is just to start. So just start something. If you go to a Toastmasters event, for instance, start by just getting up and introducing yourself. Stand up for 10 seconds and talk. And then try to do what I call the snowball, where you speak for 20 seconds after that, speak for 30 seconds after that, speak for a minute after that. So try to keep growing the time that you speak. that helps you get over the nervousness. But the other challenge that I would have for people is to, when they speak, record yourself every single time and listen to that recording every single time. Evaluate yourself, find out what mistakes you made, find out how you can correct them. That is going to be a great way for you to grow exponentially. You'll be amazed by how fast you grow by being able to listen to your own recordings or watch your own recordings and evaluate your own speaking performances. So those are the challenges that I would give you. So just start is one, and then the second is to record yourself every single time that you speak.
Thank you. And we are recording, and not only on Facebook, but also on our podcast. So Aaron, if you watch it again, I believe that you might feel that we had a wonderful session, because there's a lot of things that we're going to ask you to come back to tell us even more. And I think Aaron was talking about the speaking area, but I could also see how we can apply in other areas in life. And I like to say thanks to you to encourage every one of us. And I like to use Aaron's sentence: we don't need to be great to start, but we start to be great. And this is the beginning of our journey with Aaron in our community. We like to see you, and maybe see you in the top like Aaron, because you did start today by taking Aaron challenge. With that, thank you and all the best to everyone. And also bye to Aaron.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.